Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to have our first introductory tutorial in Dynamo. A lot of you who know me quite well definitely know that I am a big Rhino and Grasshopper fan. I use it for all types of projects. But I have to admit that in the United States, in construction and architecture business, Revit is the general solution. It is the industry standard, so we have to use it. And in Revit, a lot of time just like the other softwares, you might have to do a lot of stuff repetitively in a very boring way. So Dynamo was designed for situations like that. It can help you to streamline your workflow. Just like Grasshopper to Rhino, Dynamo is the visual programming language that's specifically designed for Revit. So in the following courses, you will see that there are a lot of similarities between Dynamo and Grasshopper. They share the same data structure, they have a lot of similarities in between in terms of terminologies, and their logic are almost the same. So if you have been using Grasshopper, it's not going to be too hard for you. I'm going to show you a very quick task that I've been doing in the past few weeks, and it will show you why you have to learn Dynamo if you are doing a lot of repetitive work. For example, this is a simple task. We are trying to lay those chairs to this room to help clients figuring out how many seats they can have in this theater. You definitely know that you can never fit those curves perfectly by using only one type of chairs with one type of width. That's why we have five different type of chairs, range from 36 inches wide to 40 inches wide. So this Dynamo player that I made can help you to solve this problem in a very fast way. Right here, you want to put the width of different types of chairs that you are using. And the order matters. You want to put the chair that you only use the most in the front, and then the one that you don't want to use quite often to the end. And then you select the chairs here. Then you can select the curves, and then you hit run. It really took a while because a lot of calculations in between. But if you're doing it by yourself, it must take longer. So now let's take a look. There's no gap in between all those chairs, and there's no gap in the end at all. As we designed, we should have a lot of chairs that has the width 36 inches. So we have 314 chairs. That's 36 inches wide. We have 34 chairs. That's 38 inches wide. And this one, we have none. And this one, we have none neither, which means that this priority does work. And let's isolate those chairs, select them all. We have created 733 chairs. And imagine if you are doing it by yourself, it's going to take a while. And of course, we can change the order. So right here, 36. And right here, we're going to change it to 40. I'll hit run again. This is also finished. Let's take a look. We have created 690 chairs. Right here, we created 737 chairs, which means that if we are putting 36 inches chairs as our priority, we are going to get 47 more chairs than this situation, which we have 40 inches as the one we want the most. So let's take a look by confirming it. If I select this one, which is a 40 inches one, we have 479 chairs. That's 40 inches, which is amazing. So this does work well. Imagine if you have to do this by yourself manually, it is going to take a while. First, you have to figure out the length of each curve, and then you have to decide the combinations of different types of chairs here. And then you have to manually move there. You cannot simply erase things because you have multiple types of chairs. It is going to take a while, but using Dynamo, all you have to do is just click and select. So let's get started how to use Dynamo. First of all, I want you to come to Manage and click Dynamo. And right here in this menu, it tells you a lot of things about Dynamo. It will tell you the versions and everything about it. And right here, you can select the file and start to make a new file. Edit, just undo and redo, things like that. And view just help you to zoom, pan. You can do all of them with your mouse. That's pretty much all you have to learn about the menu in the beginning. And of course, we are going to start a new file. And right here, it is a little bit confusing. You can see a 3D environment in the back, but if you are moving around your cursor, it's not going to move. Why is that? Because this one that we are seeing is called background 3D, but you cannot touch it unless you click switch, and then you can rotate around with your right key. Or you can use Control B to switch in between. So if you click Control B or click here, you're going to enable the graph view navigation, which we will explain in just a second. And right here is a library. In here, there are a lot of drop downs, and in each drop down, there are different type of nodes. You will be asking, what is nodes? Well, we will explain to you in a second. But don't worry about this. It looks scary, but most of the time, you never use it because what you're going to do is right-click it and call in the nodes right here. Before we get into the nodes, I want to show you the last thing, which is this control panel here. You can click this drop down here and change it to menu or automatic or periodic. We pretty much never use periodic, so always using automatic and menu. And if you click it to menu, you can decide when to run this code. Why is that? Because sometimes your scripts are going to be super complicated and you don't want it to run in between. In this case, we are doing something super simple, so I'm going to just leave it to automatic. So let's finally get started on creating our first script. So right click it, you will search sequence. So this thing is called a node inside of Dynamo. You can just imagine it as a calculator. You have some input, it will give you a output accordingly. Most of nodes have input and output, and then by floating the cursor here, it will tell you what does this do. It says that the node name is sequence. It says create a sequence of numbers. Well, this is actually helping you to create a arithmetic progression, something that you have learned in junior high. And on the left, for most of the nodes, has this input. And then on the right, you can have the output, which you can drag the output to the next node or end there. So if you are floating your cursor here, it will tell you that the start is the number or letter to start the sequence at. The default value is 0. So, and right here, the default value is 10. And it says the amount of numbers or letters in the sequence. And the last one is the space between the numbers or letters. The default value is 1. And then if we float our cursor here to these 3 dots and move your cursor down and click this, it will just show you this list here. A list is just a tool that stores data in between. And right here in this list particularly, we have 10 items here, which showing on the right down corner. And the first number here is 0, as we said. The default value is 0. And we have 10 items from 0 to 9 because the amount is 10 and the step is 1. So pretty straightforward. And right here is the index. For all the lists in different types of programming language, they are indexed there. It is like the ID for each of those items in this list. It helps you to decide which item you want to get from the list. So you can change this list by putting different numbers in. Right here, I'm going to right click it and choose slider. I'm just going to pick this integer slider. And of course, it's very straightforward. It is a slider that allows you to have different integers here. I'm just going to drag this in, put it here, and you see that the list has been updated since we are on the automatic mode. In the original list, the first value was 0, but right here, it has been updated to 1. But the index stays the same. The index still starts from 0. If you are dragging the number here, you will see that this list of number has been updated accordingly. Now the first value is 52 and the last one is 61. And of course, we can change the amount here. The default value is 10. How about I make a copy and move it here? I can make it lower. How about 6? So if we put this number in, we'll have 6 values in total, range from 52 to 57. And right now the step is default value 1. We can change it to 2. This time I don't want to use slider. I will just double click it and type in 2. Click somewhere else and you will get this value 2. And I drag it in. Now we have set the step to 2. So the first number is 52, 54, 56, and the last one is 62. And if you don't want to go through this process by floating your cursor here and then click the pin, so on and so forth, what you can do is you can right click it and then type in watch. Then you drag it here and input here. Now you can have a panel that lists all the numbers that you can see here. So in this process, you saw that a output for one node can be the input for the next one. So those nodes can be added on top of each other, which gave you a very complicated output. And you will be asking me, why do I need to learn this? Why do I need this? Well, it can be used in so many different cases. For example, if you are creating a floor plan that has 500 different rooms and you need to assign room numbers for each one of them, instead of typing in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth manually, you can just generate a list of numbers by using this sequence. And then you can use those numbers as the room numbers for your floor plans. And of course, it can be more complicated than numbers itself. You can add A, B, C, D, or other things behind it, so on and so forth. And of course, we can bring those numbers into the 3D environment. And if you are saying that there are too many nodes here, we can always maximize it and use your middle key to move around. And again, I will right click it and search coordinates. So there is this logo of a point here and it says by coordinates, which means you can create a point by using the coordinates here. And of course, this one looks like a vector. You can use this to generate a vector by inputting coordinates. So I'm going to click this one, and you can see that there's this 3D gumball popped up here. And then I'll bring those numbers in to the X. It's too far away from the origin, so I'm just going to drag it back to the origin. And then I'll bring those numbers into the Y also. Now we have created those 3D points here. You realize that, oh, I cannot move around and see it. If you are using your middle key, it's just moving those graphs. That's why we are having those two panels, as I mentioned earlier. If you click it, the Enable Background 3D, now the opacity of the nodes is lower. And then I can use the right key to move around. Isn't that great? That is the whole point. And of course, if you want to go back to the graph view, you can just click here, or you can switch in between, use Control B. Now let's keep adding our nodes. If I drag this into the Z, it will give a Z value to those points. So if I do Control B again, I can see that those points are no longer on the XY plane only. So I'm going to go back, Control B again, and then I can just make a copy of this nodes. I will disconnect this Z value by just drag this out to some empty space, click it, and then I will get it. Now I get two sets of points, and then I want to make connections between them. I will just right click it, search, and I will type in line. I want to connect them in between. So I want to use this one by start point, end point. Again, just click it, you will get this. I'll connect this in and connect this in. Now we got our warning here. It says unable to create the line. Points are likely coincidence. That's because the first point in both lists are the same point. And you cannot create a line between 2 points that has exactly the same coordinates. So what I can do to solve this problem is just give a negative value here. I can just double click it and then type in -2, click it out and drag it. Now we have used this collection of super simple nodes, created this parametric grid system. I can change those grids by just changing the value here and there. And of course, I can switch into the 3D environment by hit Control B and move around. Imagine you can use those lines to create columns with different height. This is going to save you so much time in comparison with doing them manually. And of course, you have a lot more flexibility by changing those inputs in between. And of course, you can always click here to save your project. If your project is super complicated, don't forget to save it in the first step. Having this 3D environment here allows you to preview the output before you bring it into Revit. But actually in Revit 2025, they have already allowed you to see the preview in the Revit environment also. For example, if I click Default 3D, you can see it here. In the previous version, you can only see the Dynamo generated 3D environment right here before you baking it into Revit, but they have changed it. So I've covered all the basic stuff that I want you to learn for Dynamo, and I'm looking forward to see you in our next tutorial.